Sandra Hansen. I'm an international environmental paper maker. Back years and years ago, when we were much younger, my husband and I used to do a lot of hiking and backpacking, and we would be very upset by seeing trash in places where it didn't belong, out in nature. And so we would start picking up trash, and we would bring it home in our car and we would throw it away. We did this from the time we were 19 and 20. So we already were picking up trash before art. I was painting in acrylics, I was painting in oil painting and oil pastels. And when I started studying the damage that was being done by the plastics in the water and the fish that were dying in Lake Erie and all of these issues around pollution and water pollution, I started writing about it, I started painting, and then I wanted to do a different painting for each type of pollution. And I did a couple of different paintings, and then I got to plastics. And plastics seem far more important than any other issue about pollution in the water. So I felt that if I was going to be a serious environmental artist, and I was kind of on a cusp of making that decision, that I had to make art that was environmentally sustainable. So then I was looking for the third thing, the next thing that would be a sustainable thing that I could make fine art. And then I discovered paper. So now that we have gotten our unnatural materials off of the beach, we're now going to cut some natural materials. In this case, we're going to cut some iris leaves. And then I also happen to have some Gampi here already to go. So my actual art is going to be done with Gampi, but we'll show you a little bit of the process with the iris. And the reason I'm always using the natural and the unnatural together is because of that dichotomy of the two, artificial, the natural together. I find that dichotomy between the natural and the unnatural really interesting. How do we, as a world, live with the natural world and with the artificial world and keep the world sustainable? This is Japanese Gampi, which is what we're going to actually use today. And I would have to take a knife, I would have to soak it, take a knife and get all of that off and all these little black spots if I want nice clean white paper. And then I used a knife, I don't have one, but I soaked it so it was easier to come off. You could leave this on. It's not important, but it depends on how clear and perfect and white you want your pulp to be. Once we've cleaned this, we've cut it into pieces, we've soaked it, and then we've cooked it. Then we're going to take off the lid now and see what it's like already cooked. And here we have, this is very well cooked, probably a little more cooked than we need to, but you can tell that it's ready because you pull the fibers. You want a real close-up on this one. You want to pull the fibers apart, and you can still see the fibers. This is really a little more cooked than I normally would do, but you can see that it has fibers and it's ready to be beaten. This is my Holland beater, and I ordered it from a guy, it's called a Critter, and I ordered it from a guy in New Zealand. And he did this lovely little design on the front of it, which I really like. I didn't even know it was going to have that pretty little design. So this is going to beat the fibers. It's not going to cut it like a blender. It's just going to beat it so that the fibers come apart, and you don't want cut ends as much as you would like to have mushed fibers. You see it's starting to go around already. And it will start pulling things around. Our pulp is not super fine. I decided I'd like to have a bunch of it with more longer threads in it. So I'm going to use this as my sieve. And it's running through there, and I'm catching all of the pulp in the sieve. So here we have our first little bag of pulp. When we're finished beating, it usually looks about like this. You can't really see the fibers. It's just nice and soft. When you put it in water, it looks like little clouds. So we're going to thin it out so that we can use it. So I'm adding a little bit of, I believe it's synthetic pigment, and there's already retention agent in there. So this is a turquoise. It's really pretty. So this is called the Molden Decal, and this is my vat. And this is a pretty large vat. It's about 4 by 8 vat, so my Molden Decal has to fit into it with a little bit of extra space around it. The mold, I made all of this myself. And what we're going to do is fill up the vat with water, just so that it's about 1/4 inch above here. And then we'll take the pulp and we'll mix it with water, thin it down so that we can pour it all over here. And after I've got a pretty smooth layer, more or less, I can start putting in my plastics and my garbage and whatever I feel like it. Isn't that a pretty color? So now that we've got all the natural materials plus the pigment in, and we've got a fairly thin layer of pulp here that seems to be pretty well covering, I'm going to start adding the trash. I'll have to add a little more pulp later to fill in here and there. I'm going to start with my big fish net that I got, because it's nice to start with the big elements first. I think I would like it down a little bit farther. Now that we have it all set up, we're going to just leave it here. It's finished. It's going to just drain dry for a little while. Later I might put a fan on it with a heater, and hopefully that will help it dry faster. So here is the end product. We've got it on the wall at the gallery I'm involved in, which is Flat River Gallery and Framing in Lowell, Michigan. And you can now see the fish swimming upstream. They're made out of plastic bags that I got in Sweden. And then other pieces, like this ribbon, is found from the beach. Fishing net, which often fishing nets are just thrown into the water when people are done with them and they're no good anymore. This piece of art is a link to people around the world. Everywhere I've traveled in the world, I have seen trash on the ground. And I hope to find people as I travel who are also interested in environmental issues and art. A few years ago, I started this nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3 called Artist Cultural Exchange, ACE for short. The mission of it is to bring artists here and for us to go to other countries and to make a cultural exchange, because when you understand other people, then you will have more peace in the world. And art is something that transcends borders and it transcends languages. And so we are working with our art to transcend borders and governments and create peace in the world. I have had shows in Denmark, in Sweden, in India, in China. I've gone to visit paper-making factories in India and Japan and China. One of the really interesting things I have seen is how paper making is done in a very old-fashioned way with large equipment that just pounds like this and takes care of getting rid of all the paper, the fibers, and turning it into pulp. So there's a lot of different ways where paper is still being made as it was in the 16th century in these different countries. Travel has given me an escape route, and travel has given me an opening into other worlds and other people. It has given me opportunities to exhibit my art and to participate in artist residency. I create art because it helps me talk to people when I can't use words to speak. That it explains where I'm at, or what I've done, or where I've been, or what I've seen. Thank you.